Recording is happening. All right, let's get to Facebook Live. Okay, set the page. Go live. Great. All right. Looks like we're live on Facebook and here on Zoom. Welcome everybody to our March. We're in March faculty Q&A. I can turn off this Facebook page to make sure I don't get two signals. Come on, go away. Yes, welcome everybody to our faculty Q&A for March for the Residence Academy. We are always happy to be here with everybody. Greetings to everybody coming on in Zoom from Champaign, Illinois, Ontario, Canada, Winchester, Virginia, Boulder, Colorado. That's Adam and Paul. Cortland, New York, Germany, Brussels. We just are so thrilled when you guys all beam in from all around this beautiful world we have. And we are living on. And also welcome everybody on Facebook Live, whoever's joining us there. We're grateful for your presence here as well. And if you'd ever like to join us in the Zoom for the Q&A where you can post questions, all you have to do is sign up for the free Resident Science course online at residentscience.org and become a member. And then you can participate in these Zoom Q&As with the faculty and with Nassim and post your questions. And we always have a very fascinating journey with the questions you guys ask. And it's always a treat to be with William and S and Adam and Jamie. Jamie is traveling today, so he's not here. And of course with Nassim to keep diving into this great conversation and inquiry. Probably in many ways one of the most important in our times, because this is what the future trajectory of our world is based on. Our world and beyond is based on, at least that's the view we hold. So yeah, this is a Q&A, and if this is your first time here, welcome. And just to get familiar with the procedure, we have a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom interface. So if you have a question, please go ahead and open that up and put your question in there. And then you can post your comments in the chat, and try not to post comments in the Q&A so it keeps it clean for us. And as well, make sure your chat is set to have everyone view it. I have to change mine right now. So it's not set to just host and panelists. And make sure everybody can see your chats and say hi and let us know where you're from. And we have, as I said, William and Ines and Adam here today. We always love to do a little quick check-in. So William, do you want to just say hi for a minute or two and do a little check-in with what's happening?
Yeah, thank you, Marshall. Always great to be with you guys, and thank you everybody for joining us. Looking forward to getting into some interesting conversations about unified physics and biophysics and all of that. So yeah, it's been really a productive couple of weeks since our last call here, last Q&A session. I'm actually currently working pretty much around the clock, seems like, on 3 papers. We've got a biophysics publication that is incorporating some of the new physics that Nassim and Dr. Olivier have been working on. I've kind of already talked a bit about that previously. We also have a neuro-quantum genomics paper coming out that has to do with the genetic mechanisms involved in the brain's ability to transduce information for memories. Brain as a transduction mechanism. And that also involves some non-trivial quantum mechanical properties like entanglement of DNA processing machinery with the environment as a means that information from the environment, i.e. our experiences, are transduced into the genetic code. Then there's also been a recent study done on showing directed evolution. So that is non-random changes occurring in the human genome. And this was a experiment that sampled 100 people from 2 different locations, northern location in the world where there are low endemic rates of malaria, and more equatorial region where there are high rates of endemic malaria. And they found that samples of genomes taken from individuals in the equatorial region had spontaneous generation of mutations that are protective against malaria at a statistically significantly higher frequency than the samples taken from people at more northern latitudes. And so, basically showing that there's some kind of genetic sensing apparatus at play where these individuals in a malaria-prone region, their genomes at least know that it's going to be beneficial to have some protection mechanisms, and those protection mechanisms are generated. And it's just that something like that via a conventional classical evolutionary perspective would take thousands of years because it needs just these random mutations. So we're writing a paper on that just because it's something that we predicted in the Unified Space Memory Network paper. We predicted that these kind of things would be seen, and we explained how and why they occur. So, the USN paper, Unified Space Memory Network paper, kind of spans a large region from cosmogenesis to consciousness. So it's in there, but it doesn't have a very detailed explanation. So we're going to kind of take that out and give it an entire paper so that it's really spelled out and showing that, hey, what we said back in 2015 has been confirmed in a large-scale human population study here in 2022.
Fantastic. Great, William. This is exciting stuff. And you think that paper might come out this year sometime?
Yeah.
We shouldn't ask that question, I guess, anymore.
Well,
right,
never
mind.
I mean, it better come out this year. So I mean,
okay,
yeah. No, I think it will, because
right.
I'm gonna be working on it to get it finished. So yeah.
All right. No pressure. Thanks, William. And that's welcome as always.
Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm still in Guatemala. Well, I've had a beautiful time spent with my family. Also regarding research, I've been working in a chapter of a book. So it's almost finished. It's going to be very soon outside. It's called, so this chapter is explaining all the experiments that we have been performing with the collaboration having here in Mexico regarding the consciousness, mind, laser experiments. So this is a book which is very important because it's collecting the whole story and the history of the, let's say, of the research and the person performing this research in particular in consciousness. So in the chapter I've been asked to write, it's precisely about my involvement in this research and the experiments that we performed, and the let's say the conclusions, the evidences we have found regarding the Shin-3 experiments. We have talked about it in a couple of sessions before, which is mind. It's a person who's trained in this very deep Dzogchen traditions. He has been trained in many, many meditations. And so the idea was to see if there was any possibility of evidencing or measuring this synchronization of the brain, and to see if there's any effect that you could measure, like in an experiment setup. So we found evidence, which we have, of course, to confirm in the further in much deeper degree. But what we already have seen is quite impressive. So so that gave us, like, let's say, like, it was the moment to start writing the whole story of this, not only this person, this whole trajectory, this whole research, which is also honoring a person who will probably be hearing more about him in the future. It's Jacobo Greenberg, the doctor in Mexico, who in the 70s started this research in consciousness. He had created a laboratory in the UNAM University. He had started a lot of experiments, and he was about to start experiments, and he was funded at the university by national funds from the government. Okay, so this was research. He had published at least, I don't know, on consciousness and topics related to that, at least 5 to 10 articles about it. He has written 50 books about it. So he developed his own model of let's say interaction of the field of the brain with the field. So, and this person disappeared mysteriously in '94. So after that, it was like a huge hole in everything that happened in between. But fortunately for us, I got to meet a person who was directly involved in his experiments at the time, and he continued his research, and he continued his own path, and he created his own methodology, but connecting as well with Jacobo Greenberg's work. So, because they had worked together at the beginning. So this is a huge coincidence that we honor as well in the book. So this chapter, I'm reading this chapter, I'm finishing the book is called Shinterji, the Back Door, and it explains why it is called that way and where the origin of the name comes from and all of that. So it's a beautiful book. I really recommend you to read it once it's out. I'll say when that is. Okay, but it's really soon. It's in a couple of, maybe this next month. So it's really almost over. The book title, I'll write it down, is Shinterji. I'll write it just very fast here.
Somebody asked you also to put the name of that person you mentioned.
The Back Door. And his name is Jacobo Greenberg.
Shinterji.
Greenberg.
Full name.
Greenberg. And the person I'm working with is Jose Luis Bueno. He's the person who's writing the book, and he's got his own, let's say, it's got like the heritage of what Jacobo Greenberg was doing. In fact, Greenberg was about to start researching about the non-local effects in consciousness and in this kind of phenomena. And that's when he disappeared, when he was about to start the experiments with some people in India. And he was about to take the flight. His flight was already bought and everything, and he just suddenly disappeared. So there's a documentary, I'll write the documentary as well, explaining the whole story of this disparition. It's The Secret of Dr. Greenberg.
Hey, Inez, I think that your chat is set to host and panelists only.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Good observation.
Okay, I'll just put a copy and paste. Thanks for saying. Is a movie.
Good catch, William.
Good catch. Yeah, wait. Okay.
And then once that book's out, you can add it to the collection of epic manuals behind you there, William. You got Cosmometry back there, Power of Sacred Location, Dr. Lydia, of course, Marshall's epic, amazing tome. And you got a few other things, but I can't read the titles on.
This is a little known one. This is my book.
Yours?
What
do you mean your book? We didn't know you had a book.
Yeah.
It's it's
nice.
kind of like a layman's summary of the unified physics and
Wow.
entanglement nexus of awareness.
Why don't we have a copy of this?
Yeah,
William?
man.
What's the deal, buddy? You're holding
You're
out on
hiding
us.
out.
It's more like a pamphlet than a book,
Oh, pamphlet,
Well.
pamphlet. I want one.
Either way, I still want a copy. Where do we get it?
It's on Amazon.
All right, throw a
Yeah.
link in the chat there. Buddy.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Yeah, please write it.
Yes.
Come on, get over your humility and get this thing out there.
That's right. That's right. Kiss
All
the
right.
juice.
And another thing I wanted to add is that also there's also an event that's happening next week. So this is a contact that Marco Diaz, Marco Diaz is the person who's working with us in Spanish and social media. And so he got to contact, I don't know, from a resonance page, I guess, people that are organizing an event for next week. So in 2 weeks, and this event is hosting. It's called the New Paradigm in Science. So it is a very important event that we are going to be organizing for next 2 weeks. So that's also part of what we have been doing. That's a very important event that's happening in Mexico City in the 2nd of April. So yeah, so that's a great stuff we have been working on. And also there's an event for neuroscience. There's a neuroscience conference coming soon also as well. So we're also preparing this event that would be in Querétaro. Querétaro is another city in Mexico, so it's up north of Mexico City, and so we're also preparing. So there are many things happening: events, books, chapters, and I'm finishing some corrections I have to do for the electron paper review, the Cedar-Bewigan electron puzzle review I have been writing. So it's and these are corrections in order for it to get published. So then once that's published, it will be like a complementary to the paper that Olivier and Nassim are writing. So that's also a very important thing that's going on.
Great.
Summary.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If there are some links, Ines, if you have links to these events that you were just telling about, please post those as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, you're
Great.
welcome.
Adam.
Just to make sure, William, that link you sent us it's not in French, is it? Because it says French edition.
No, no. So the publishing company, interestingly enough, is in France. But
okay.
So I think that they have books in French, but this particular link is in English.
Well, you should have them paying Amazon, because it actually says the language is French, like down in the information on it. And I looked at all formats and editions, and it doesn't have a different one. So that might catch some people that are English speakers going, oh, but it's in French, alas. So maybe let Amazon know it needs to correct that.
I'll use that anyways as an excuse for why they haven't sold so much.
Right, exactly.
But no, that's a good point.
Let's all in this community dive in and get some star ratings up. I see 1 rating at 5 stars. Let's boost those up to 100 ratings.
Yeah,
at 5
exactly. Let's go. RSF fleet. Back up William on this.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, why don't you give us a little check-in on your end?
Sure. Yeah, it's really good to be here with you guys. I always miss these sessions whenever they're not happening, or the date's wrong, or Jamie can't get it started. Last time we had a little bit of an issue with the link and stuff, and we apologize for that. We were really hoping to have a good session with everyone. But I'm really happy to be here, and I've been very full on over the last couple months. But I just had my birthday last week, so I had a lovely little vacation. I went up to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and got in some deep powder skiing at Grand Targhee. It was like waist deep after an epic storm one day, and that was absolutely fantastic. And the week before that, I was in Costa Rica doing a lot of alliance building around the distributed social web systems that I'm working on. And that's coming along really well. Our Starship dashboard is continuing to evolve. But the main focus really emerging from it more and more as the alliance has grown around it and strategic go-to-market partners have grown is this real heart-centered core, which is essentially what I like to call a regenerative operating system experience. It's essentially that, people want to make a difference in the world right now. We all want to make a change. We all want to do things to help out, but we don't necessarily have the time to be in either, organize a massive river cleanup project or go down and volunteer at our local homeless shelter or Food Not Bombs or all of these things. Like, we want to do more. And a lot of us feel this sort of difficulty in how we can participate and actually experience participating in the planetary transformation and in healing and restoration of biospheres and social spheres and ecospheres. And so we baked into this whole economic engine that we've been building this capacity to essentially, every time you create something, whether that's a piece of music or a video or a really cool graphic, you can donate 1% minimum up to 100% of whatever you're going to make from that into an impact fund sector of your choice. So you can think about it as like, I'm passionate about water, I'm passionate about land rights, or I'm passionate about justice and social justice. And you basically pick a sector, pick the donation amount, and then, you post it and you sell your course, or you sell your audio, or you sell your image media. And every single time it sells, there's an automatic amount that then goes into this impact fund, and you get impact tokens in return that kind of help you track where and how you've been sort of donating to these things. But it's not, coming out of your paycheck. It's literally like you're just channeling whatever percentage of the money that you're earning straight into that field. So it's really, really like easy to do. And then you have this sort of, this is where the real, Starship dashboard side comes in. You've got this really cool dashboard with a planetary view, and you can see all the impact projects in the different sectors that we've built in the network. And you can actually see how much funding each of those projects is getting. If you open the project up, you can see their media stream of what they've done before, during, and after a project, or how they're, capturing their progress as they're actually doing this work on the ground, planting trees, or, cleaning a river, or, helping people in a certain area, or doing a health project. And so you have this kind of real-time social feed of all of the actual work and impact that's happening on the planet and the transformations that are going along with it. And you can see exactly how much you've participated in that. So it creates this kind of gamified feedback loop, getting us more excited about actually participating in the ways we can, even if that's just by being creative, and sort of simplifies the process of artists doing fundraisers for the Amazon and for things like that. So I'm really, really lit up about this. And some of the investors we're speaking with right now are really excited about it. And I think it's going to be what helps us continue to grow our funds and scale and build out these systems and get them in the hands of people. And it's also just such a nice, refreshing change, because there's so much noise and buzz in the like NFT tech space, next social network, and they all look exactly the same and exactly like Facebook, and they're all trying to do the same thing. And it's this big ego competition. And for me, it's like the point of helping us get out of these massive centralized systems, that are completely stuck in the sort of, egotistic game of how many followers do you have and how big are you and whatever, and getting away from being stuck and being throttled and having to pay for advertising just to get, simple, beautiful, healing messages out there, or being throttled simply because you mention a word that flags their algorithm or that kind of thing, is like more than just getting free in our communications. But why do we free our communications? Why do we free our identity and our data and our connection to each other so that we can actually work together as a planetary community and be in service to transforming the planet. So I'm really inspired by this work, and I'm so happy to share that we're making really great progress. We still have a ways to go, but of course, you guys, as part of this beautiful community and close to my heart, will know as we get closer to launching, and we'll open up the alpha to some of you guys when it's ready. And I'm really excited for that, hopefully later this year.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I always appreciate all that you've been putting in for years, Adam, and envisioning and beginning to develop and build, and now the collaborations that have been in the works for a number of years. But it sounds like, you know, next level coming in, and of course it's very timely in our world. And I've had the pleasure of getting a little tour of some of what Adam has been working on. I guess it was last year now, and I imagine it's progressed since then quite a bit, but it was beautiful back then. So I look forward very much to that announcement when it's time to participate in it and, you know, see what we can do to collaborate. Yeah. So for my part, I'm just going to say real quick that I'm really excited that my Cosmometria, Spanish version, the book is ready to publish. I've gotten through, I've done all the corrections, just have to get together some marketing for it, and we'll be pushing it out soon. So would love everybody's support in getting that out to the Spanish speaking audience of this community and beyond when that's happening. So we'll let you know through I'm sure through the email list, and I'll put it into the forum as well. So yeah, pretty excited about that. So with that, let's go into some Q&A. And what we like to do is when we answer a question, we'll bring you on screen. We'll invite you to come on screen. And if you're not in a good place to come on screen, or just don't want to come on screen and participate, that's totally fine. Just leave your camera off and yourself muted, and put a note in the chat if you want. But we always like to say hi when we can. And I'll just a quick answer about Nassim and the paper. There's a question from Thomas here, and just to say that that's in the works, of course, as we well know. There was maybe mention of a 2/22/22 date for release. I know that there's a lot that goes into preparing to release a paper. That's not just about finishing the paper, but really being able to promote it and be ready to receive, you know, all the feedback and interactions that come from it. So my understanding is that's a process that needs the attention that it's getting right now, and Nassim is pretty much heads down in that process, which is also why you haven't seen him this month on Live with Nassim. It's just getting to that point where all attention needs to be in that direction. So which is a good thing, and we're excited about it, and hopefully soon we're gonna see an announcement about that paper coming out. So that's that. Who wants to take a question? Who wants to jump in on one of them?
I mean, I'll go. I read over Simon's question, and I've got a hard stop at the top of the hour, by the way, as usual, unfortunately.
Okay, then, yeah, go for it.
But yeah, so Simon's asking, how do you define consciousness versus the subconsciousness in terms of its estimated speed defined in physics equations? I.e., what is the difference between pure consciousness, its frequency, and speed versus subconsciousness, its frequency and speed in terms of physics and biophysics? I.e., seems the subconsciousness is operating all our body's cellular systems, breathing, etc., while consciousness is a deliberate determination to create something that may not be happening on its own mindfulness, something like that. What is more powerful, or how would you describe or illustrate any differences in terms of physics or biophysics? So this is a great question, Simon. And I'd say that, you know, initially, I want to set up a little bit of context and framework in order to kind of come at it from a few different angles. So the first thing I'll say is that it seems like what you're what you are essentially surfacing is this sense that the subconscious operates faster, because when we, move subconsciously in response to a stimulus, that movement may happen faster than the conscious mind thinks and reacts to, say, putting your hand on a hot stove, right? So there's like a impulse that's going on between the contact of your hand and the hot stove that's causing a reaction that's faster than you going, oh my goodness, my hand is burning, I should probably remove that from the stove, right? Like in some kind of linear sequenced format. But when we're dealing with like the electrical impulse subconscious response versus the sort of linear process of thinking and digesting information and choosing to make a decision based on that, then yes, we are certainly in a much, much higher speed framework for the subconscious. And I know this as a martial artist, because in martial arts, you're essentially building neural pathways that show your body how to react to certain points of impact, certain types of movement, and respond to movement coming at you that you don't have to think about the response to. You've created the pathway such that that punch is coming towards you and your foot's already there and you're stepping and you're moving and you're avoiding that punch, right? But does this actually get at the speed of consciousness itself or the speed of the subconscious? I don't think so, because consciousness, when we're actually getting into the heart of what consciousness and the subconscious is, I think what we're actually talking about is this coherent vibrational frequency field that's embedded in the fabric of space-time itself. Now, we may channel consciousness through thought and ideas in a way or in a pattern whose sequence may appear to be slower, but each point along that sequence is essentially still operating in this sort of fundamental field of space-time. And the same is true of the subconscious. And in fact, if we kind of look at if we come from this standpoint that consciousness is embedded in space-time itself, then what we understand is that the unified physics approach shows us that this field is very deeply interconnected, and not just through like protons entangled with protons, but that like the fabric of space itself could be this wormhole network, essentially, where there's instantaneous capacity for quantum coherence. In other words, entanglement between any positions in space-time vibrating in the same way with other positions in space-time. So does the real information transfer take that time? Like if you touch the stove, that it takes the electrical impulse from those senses to reach your brain to do the thing? Well, maybe not. The information of you touching the stove might actually already be there in the exact moment that you touch the stove, but the physiological response that causes your sodium potassium pumps to go off in your arm and react to it, that part might be the thing that takes a little bit longer, so appears slower, even from a subconscious standpoint. And the perception of, coming up against something and having to make a choice, some of us have perhaps experienced the sense where you kind of know the answer to something, even when somebody's asking you the question. Like it's like already there, you've already come to the decision, but you receive the information and then you actually go through a process of like thinking about, do I really want to choose the thing that I already know that I'm going to choose? Or do I really want to do the thing that I kind of already feel that I'm going to do? And it's as if the space of our consciousness and its relationship to the subconscious, has this capacity for instantaneous determination. And yet we still go through the experiential process of kind of figuring out what happened. The mother whose kid skins their knee outside, they feel they feel the thing, they have the moment where they have this entangled impulse with the child, but then they have to actually question, what was that I just felt? Why am I thinking about my kid right now? Why do I feel like I should go check on him? Right. And all of those things kind of come after this instantaneous, conscious, entangled impulse.
Yeah, wow, that opened up a lot of doors to look into. I've heard some people talk about it as the subconscious is operating all of the biology, like the heart breathing and the cells and moving like that, and consciousness is more something that we would generate from maybe not necessarily going to happen, but we're going to cause to happen. And I like the way, that's why I brought it to the faculty, because I like the way that it just seems too simplistic, especially as the unified field theory comes into more coherence.
Thanks for your question. It was great.
Yeah.
But maybe I would add in that question that there's also the unconscious. So there's the subconscious, which is like kind of governing the, let's say, the biological, what's determined by DNA, let's say, which, as we now know, it's kind of like the imprint we leave, and we think we're determined by it because we're not really conscious of what it's doing. So it's like the default program mode that's just operating and operating and operating. And it's great because you don't have to be aware and conscious of all the, it would be impossible, to follow every single cell, the information that every single atom is, and so that would be impossible. So let's say that the network is, the subconscious network is governing that frame of reference, let's say. But there's another one which I interest a lot. It's the unconscious, which is something happening at the level of the mind, of the psyche, like, so you have, and then you have the conscious, which is the part that you already know, that I'm my name and where I live, and another that part of the conscious. And the unconscious would be like the psychological, let's say, part in which you are able to impact both consciousness and subconscious. Once that frame, it's really interesting because that's the unconscious who puts your hand in the flame. So why did you do that? I mean, why did you have this accident? So there's like this level of reality that's happening in which everything seems to be, it's not dual like a subconscious and consciousness. It's like more, these two are entangled or related by the unconscious, which is kind of, in between, like, oh, I put my hand in there, but why did I do that? What was I thinking? Something else? What do I, so you go into a different direction. But that's a very important one because it's like what's really telling you that there's some story going on behind that you really have to pay attention to, like I had this accident, and it because each time I have an accident, I said, like, why did I have this accident? Like, Jesus, it could be a very minor accident, or it could be, a life-threatening accident. And, it's not an accident, it's something that's happening, codified into space-time, and that it's happening to you, and that you are doing for some reason that you have to unveil. So I'm really fascinated by that part of this, I think I would say that was one of the most interesting parts of this network, trying to figure out why everything, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm saying what I'm saying, and that's part of something that it's not really on the subconscious or the conscious. It's like somewhere in between. Are
you looking at this in your research? Do you look at that?
Yeah.
There's 3 areas.
Yeah. That's part of the research I'm doing.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the unconscious.
Yeah, you forgot about it because you don't pay attention to it.
Which is why I would have an accident or do something that I wasn't supposed to do.
And that's crucial because that's the point that's connecting the other two. If not, you would have the conscious and the subconscious with no point, with no link in between. And how would the DNA develop further? How, and the evolution. And we really have to try to understand that the DNA is a program that we have, and that we can, tap into that program. Because if not, we would say, oh, I'm determined by biology. And so, because biology is just repeating what it already knows how to do, but we have to think also into creating something new. And that is part of where consciousness and subconscious can bridge through unconscious.
Okay.
Through
Yeah, because
unbased
I've listened to a lot of Bruce Lipton and you guys and epigenetics, I think it's called, right? And so I think that's what you're touching on, and that's part of how this question arose, as well as thinking about almost seeing the films about the Dalai Lama and searching for the new Dalai Lama. It had me wondering about consciousness or what they tap into in terms of physics, in terms of how you guys would illustrate that, what's happening in that phenomenon.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of what you're describing, and as I would kind of put on this sort of border between unconsciousness as a definition and the super consciousness, right? Which is essentially the same thing-ish, right? But we kind of define unconsciousness from the point of view that we're not aware of what's going on. But at the same time, there is some level of us that is aware of what's going on, because we can't separate ourselves from this field, from the genetic information, from the memories through time coursing through us. And so it's kind of like that point in the circle where unconscious and superconscious come together, so to speak. That's the way I like to think about what you described, but great addition. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you very much. For a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, indeed, there is. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
Let's see, William, you want to jump in on one, and then we'll see if we can squeeze in one more from Adam before he goes.
Yeah. Let's see. There's definitely a couple here I'd like to address. Maybe I'll start with Regina. I'm sorry, Mish, asking to discuss in a little bit more detail genetic mosaicism. Because this has really been a paradigm shift in molecular biology in the last 20 or so years. And it's really, I think, important to understand and even can shed greater insight into just what exactly your DNA is and how it relates to you. Even before going into some genomic recombination mechanisms, my master's degree from New York University is in applied recombinant DNA technology. So it was actually a pretty in-depth study of how DNA as a modular polymer can be reordered, and the effects that just reordering the position of some of these gene cassettes and genetic elements, just reordering them, the effect that can have. Even before getting into some of those more mechanistic mechanisms, you are kind of an amalgamation or a gestalt of thousands of people. So you're not just one person. If you look at your genome, you can actually kind of parse out what percentage thousands of people have contributed to making your genome. And of course, these are your ancestors, which you don't have to go back many generations before you have thousands of people who have contributed to your gene repertoire. And, to me, that this kind of makes some sense, because maybe sometimes we do things or think things or have behaviors that we can't fully explain, or that doesn't seem to integrate fully with our understanding of who we are. And I mean, it kind of in a way, you're trying to integrate the behaviors and what's been inherited from thousands of different people. So, genetic mosaicism can have actually a pretty general context. But more specifically, though, and what is perhaps a little bit more interesting is the kind of genetic mosaicism that's being generated right now, even while you're watching this webinar, learning in this webinar, and forming new memories about it. Part of that process involves a very specific region in your brain where you have neuronal stem cells, neuroblast cells, where the genome is being rearranged. Those modular units, those gene cassettes, genetic elements are being rearranged, reshuffled. And this has very specific effects, just even simply that, ostensibly, before this kind of mechanism was understood, every single cell in your body has the exact same genome. That was the idea before this was understood. But your skin cells are pretty different from your heart cells, which are pretty different from your brain cells, et cetera, et cetera. They have the exact same genome. How are they so completely different? Part of that is that there's two different regions in the genome. There's heterochromatin and there's euchromatin. Heterochromatin is DNA that's been condensed and effectively silenced. And euchromatin are regions that are open and being actively expressed. So your skin cells and your heart cells and your brain cells will have different heterochromatin and euchromatin regions. And of course, the open regions are going to be specific to skin cell, brain cell, et cetera. But so if you have this genetic recombination that's occurring in your neuronal stem cells, the specific region in the brain that this is occurring, it's called the subventricular zone. And this is a really fascinating area of the brain because you have lateral ventricles, which are essentially water-filled cavities, vesicles at the center of your brain. Within that region, almost 70% in the subventricular zone, 70% of all new neurons that are being formed, it occurs there. And in this region, you're having this genetic mosaicism, this recombination of the genome. But so if you have a gene element that's in, say, that heterochromatin region, it's not being expressed. It's effectively silenced. And so this could be a dormant region that has never been expressed in human brains before, in the human brain, or at least not for hundreds of thousands of years, because it's been in this heterochromatin region. But say that during this recombination event, this dormant genetic element is taken from that region and put into the euchromatin region, you might be expressing a genetic element that hasn't ever been expressed in the human brain, or hasn't, at least for hundreds of thousands of years. And who knows what kind of effects that might have. If it's a protein that incorporates into the synaptic complex, the synapse is where electrical signals are passed between brain cells. Say it incorporates in there and has some kind of quantum mechanical effect where it increases coherence and entanglement, might increase your psychic abilities, your non-local information signal processing power. So, and this happens in a single lifetime. So, you could be 25 years old, never had a, let's say, psychical experience, non-local signal transduction experience, but this dormant region's been turned on in your brain. You're expressing this novel protein. All of a sudden, you're getting this non-local signal processing. That's kind of a speculative mechanism, but I can cite specific examples where dormant regions have been moved into open regions, and dormant genes become expressed and have very significant effects. There was even a study, an example of this occurring in a population of elephants, and the dormant gene that got moved into the open region gave them increased resistance to cancer. But so to wrap this all up and address the main point of your question, does it only happen in the brain? This is actually what I was doing doctoral research on. And we were directly studying the subventricular zone. So I'll try to see how concise I can make this, but essentially you've got this neurogenic region. Now, the stem cells in their earliest undifferentiated phases, they're not necessarily particular to any tissue type. They can become just about any kind of tissue. They can become skeletal muscle cells, cardiac, heart cells, skin cells. They're undifferentiated stem cells, and they're there in the subventricular zone. Now, what's really interesting about some of the anatomy of this region is that you've got the pineal gland right above the ventricles, and it sends this extension of itself into the ventricles, into the water-filled cavity. It's this highly sinusoidal extension that goes all through the ventricles. And what's really interesting about this extension of the pineal gland is that it has no blood-brain barrier. Almost every other region of the brain has a blood-brain barrier that will very tightly regulate what can come in and out. So the exchange between the body and the brain. What we were looking at is if stem cells from the SVZ, the subventricular zone, after they've undergone this recombination, they can go into the corpus callosum, enter the bloodstream, and travel through the body. So essentially, you get genetic mosaicism, not just in the brain, but in the entire body. And actually, we believe it is a two-way street because how are the stem cells in the SVZ region being replenished? We believe that stem cells circulating through the body are traveling through the area with the lack of the blood-brain barrier to that region. You can undergo genetic mosaicism, recombination, go back into the body. And so, the regenerative capacity of your body, I believe before too long, it'll be understood that is in part enabled by genetic mosaicism, recombination.
Wow, great explanation.
I have one quick question, if I may. What's the mechanism between changing it from a dormant gene into one that expresses? So genetic mosaicism is the implication that it is happening, right? So that your genes are changing, but is it consciousness that's doing it? I know that Nassim doesn't like that word, but to say that it's a subplanckian network that's going through planks that's changing, but in the same way that Ines was just explaining that there's different levels of consciousness, is it possible, is it happening that if the tip of our iceberg, let's say, is consciousness, and that it trickles down from there, can the tip of the iceberg of consciousness change or at least express the genes that are able to change? Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That makes sense. Okay,
and
cool.
actually,
Great.
I think that's one of the most exciting, salient points about this whole mechanism is that, it's occurring in the brain, which we link very strongly with consciousness, right? So, that's to me, maybe not so much a coincidence there. And also, I mean, this region, if you look at the brain as a energy transducing, energy/information transducing system, this is right at the heart, right at the center of this energy information transduction. And I mean, even in terms of our interface with the unified space memory network, the field of information of consciousness, this is the central interface of our brain transduction system. So, I mean, it's sitting right at the center of this interface. I strongly suspect that consciousness is playing a direct role in the amount of genetic mosaicism that's being produced, that the amount, the kind of gene activations that are taking place. And so, like, if you're meditating or some other similar type practice, I believe that this mechanism is getting amped up. It's occurring with a lot greater frequency and a much greater coherency of the information dynamic, so that those regions that really are going to have a significant and functional impact are going to be activated and moved into the active regions. And I think that there's evidence for that, because if you look at meditators or people who follow other similar type practices, just energy work. I mean, Kung Fu, yoga, any of those kind of things. But certainly, awareness practices are going to increase the transduction of energy and information through this central region. But, they have like surprisingly higher levels of focus, obviously awareness, but even the capacity to learn and remember new things. Like, it's not, it's almost even so much that the IQ increases. I mean, so not even like the amount of new things you can learn, but the things you can understand increases, and other, effects beyond just mental.
That's great. I want to just see, I know Adam has to leave soon. And Adam, are you going to have time for another question before you go? It's getting tight. So.
Yeah, I could probably
squeeze
go
one
a
in.
little bit over. Maybe.
We'd love to hear a little bit more from you. So
thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Happy
Mish.
birthday, Adam.
Thank you, Mish.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mish.
Great question.
Thank you.
That was awesome. All right.
Yeah, that was
great.
a tour de force, William. Nice job, dude. That was epic. I learned a lot from that. That was juicy. Wow. Yeah, I have two questions kind of that I feel like are kind of connected, and I wanted to respond briefly, maybe to both of them. It's from Velagiri and Forrest Hudson. Velagiri says, please comment on the dream, i.e. illusory nature of reality as espoused in the Vedas. Does quantum physics have any substantive existence? And Forrest Hudson asked, does the sun emanate light codes that can be perceived as geometric fractal patterns within the visual cortex? During my sun gazing exercises, I can easily experience this imagery. They don't seem or sound that related on the surface, but if we look at addressing what the nature of reality is and the sort of direct experience of perception of reality, they're actually quite connected, because this idea that reality is an illusion and everything is an illusion, and that, does quantum physics have any actual real meaning or substance? Well, it certainly does, because we're having an experience, and our experience is essentially the fundamental aspects of our existence. In fact, everything that we experience has substance. It's not that you're experiencing things and those experiences are somehow illusions, as if like they didn't happen, because everything that you remember, everything that you go through, everything you see, everything you touch, everything you feel is literally the lineage of your your being's journey through time, so to speak. And so, you know, you can say, yeah, it's all Maya, because all that's truly here is consciousness, or the unconscious, as Inez would, you know, correct me, or the super conscious, perhaps, that we are. And yet, if we believe that nothing is real but that super consciousness, then we have to really ask, what is that super consciousness? And as we go deeper and deeper into what that is in our spiritual explorations and our meditations and our sun gazing exercises, the more we realize that, in fact, that is actually expressed in everything, that the superconscious, unconscious is what is giving rise to this entire flow of experiences and everything else. It's kind of like taking the old spiritual adage, like you must forget everything in order to realize everything. You have to, you know, clean the mind by removing the attachments to all the things, and then you realized you're actually already attached to everything. It's all you, because it's all interconnected. And the additional piece I want to add on this, as I kind of wrap up this little philosophical, theological journey on this, is that inherent to this fundamental field, this super conscious interaction that we have with all things, is fundamental geometries. There are light codices baked in to the whole expression of the universe, and every experience we have is coming through different expressions of geometry with vibrational harmonics passing through them. And so space-time itself is literally that. It is a geometric, you know, hyperdimensional lattice that's fractal and holographic. And so when we say, is the sun emanating light codes to us? Well, yes, it is. And the light that's coming from the sun is traveling through a fractal geometry lens, which is called space-time. And that fractal geometry lens is also inside of our eyes, and the light cones inside of our eyes. And in fact, every way that light is sort of shifted, changed, prismed through things like our eyelashes, through things like the surface of the lens of our eye itself, it's all geometry interacting with geometry, with vibrational waves passing through it. And so yes, we are able to see some elements of that. And you know, there's certainly people that would contest that the light cones in your eyes could pick up, you know, the subtle vibrational geometry of space-time itself. But any of us that have really done deep meditative work and actually sat with and looked at space-time in deep ways, or maybe had a psychedelic experience, or maybe, you know, had a certain experience in a temple somewhere where we saw that you can actually see it and experience it. And whether that's happening through your visual eye or the subtle interpretations provided by deeper energetic mechanisms inside of your system that are built in space-time orientation in different ways, that's certainly up for question. Maybe William would jump on that and say, like, you know, what he thinks about whether the biological mechanism of the light cone in the eye could receive that, or Inez, if you wanted to jump on that. But I essentially would say that we are geometric vibrational mechanisms interpreting a geometric vibrational mechanism. We are that, and it's all real and none of it's real. Because in a sense, it is us, and we're experiencing us unfolding ourselves in time, essentially.
I like
Forrest,
it.
I just wanted to see if Forrest, do you want to make any comment before Adam has to leave?
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate what you've said, and it most of it does resonate with me. And so any little follow-on question I have is sort of kind of backtracks on your just most recent conversations about DNA and the pineal gland and specifics. And trust me, I'm not or anatomy is not my profession. So as an example, I understand the pineal gland has a certain role, but this information that we take in through our eyes, which is my understanding, the eyes are simply an extension of our brain. It's outside of the skull and it's simply an extension thereof. And I think that's probably why 40% of our brain effort is donated to vision alone. But does the light that comes through the eye, does it then, is that information scanned, and I'll use the word scanned, by the pineal gland before it's in essence imparted into the brain itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll actually pass that one to William, and you can take over. I wish I could hear the way you'd articulate this response, William. And Inez, please jump in. I know we haven't had a chance to, I haven't had a chance to hear your voice that much this session, but I do have to jump off. And Forrest, thanks for the great question.
Thank you.
Thank you as
very
well,
much.
Vela, for the deep philosophical question. And I look forward to
Mhm.
joining you guys all again soon.
Thank you, Adam.
All
Take
right.
And this
care.
whole
Marshall.
experience of experiencing this light, I mean, does it play a role in, say, expressing genes that may have been dormant at one point in time? And so this whole light thing, I'm just fascinated by it. And I can, during these, and I just stumbled on this is anything that's phenomenal. I sit out in the sun, close my eyes, face the sun, and just take, in this case, a feather and just oscillate it at a certain frequency up and down in front of my eyes, and the geometry just explodes. I mean, I just can't describe it. I wish I could put an HDMI cable in the back of my head and throw it onto a screen, because I can't describe it. And going back to what Adam said, as a sort of a sort of, saying that, yes, I mean, people have discounted, I've tried to express this to other people, and they just sort of discount it as, well, it's a physiological experience, there's nothing really to it. But being in the high Andes at one point in time at the base of Asangati, which is the holy mountain, doing a ceremony and doing the same little, exercise, all of a sudden the flower of life just goes, poof, it's just like right there. Is that physiological? I sort of doubt it, so I mean, so I just sort of scoff at those who try to discount it as pure physiological effect. But I am very much wanting to know what role the pineal gland plays in just taking in light through the eyes, and how does it affect, if at all, our DNA? And is DNA that's been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years that we're carrying around is this little exercise, potentially bringing things forth, expressing things that have been dormant?
The quick answer to that is yes. I mean, I believe absolutely yes.
Yeah, I mean, because I can tell you, again, stumbling across this back in 2013, so I've just been doing it, not every day, but several times a week, that I can tell you that the geometry has certainly escalated in its complexity. I mean, it's multi-layered. It just goes on forever. And if you focus your awareness somewhere in this mental vision, I can just, I can drive myself through this geometry.
You're increasing your receptivity via changes in that system. But in terms of the pineal gland's involvement in that, the pineal gland is a literal third eye.
Correct.
Yeah, it has extra retinal cells on the inside.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So
I'm retired, so I do a lot of reading. So I
What are they
know
looking
what you're
at?
talking about.
William, what are they looking at?
Yeah. So I mean, that's really interesting question, because but for what that means, though, on one hand, is that it's not involving your eyes. So there's actually several points on the body where the light is transduced or brought to the pineal gland via these channels, so that the electromagnetic energy is directly stimulating the pineal gland. So even if you were blind or lost your eyes, you could still have this activation with via the light of the pineal gland. Yeah, and so
Is that light, excuse me, Dr. Brown, is that light in the form of near infrared rays? As you know, you're saying it's coming in other than through the eye. So is near infrared rays, my understanding is it can permeate or at least penetrate the skin to a certain depth.
or you actually have light photoreceptors in your skin as well. So,
Okay.
actually all along the scalp and in the forehead region. So they can electrochemically transduce the electromagnetic energy in the visible spectrum. And then certainly, wavelengths that are outside the visible spectrum can pass directly to the pineal gland. So infrared, microwave, radio wave, and then on the other side too, so cosmic rays can go in there, and it's pretty interesting when cosmic rays are coming in. They just it wasn't too long ago that they found that the sun is actually emitting 7 times the amount of gamma radiation than what it should be emitting. So actually, there's a lot of really high energy light coming from the sun as well. You're getting activation of the pineal gland via light, via these extra retinal receptors. And then it also has crystalline accretions. So these piezoelectric crystals all over it. And then it's a direct link from that activation to the subventricular zone where you have neurogenesis. And as we were investigating in my doctoral research, genetic recombination possibly in somatic cells throughout the body. Because the pineal gland, it extends into the ventricles via the choroid plexus, which it's this like highly like sinusoidal, almost like a snaking body going all through the ventricle system, the ventricular system. And actually your eyes are directly connected to your ventricles. So the fluid, the fluid in your eyes is ventricular fluid. But so the energy that, you get the activation of the pineal gland straight through the choroid plexus to the subventricular zone, where you have the exchange of these activated neuronal cells, and that information or that energy. I strongly suspect that information is going to the actual genetic recombination mechanisms, so that dormant regions. If you're getting like highly coherent information, it's possibly activating, dormant gene regions that could have really significant functional effects, and regions that may not have been expressed for hundreds
This
of thousands of
imagery,
years.
the imagery can be in extremely high definition. I mean, it's just like, it's just not like a square and a hexagon here. I mean, it's just so complex. You can't even describe it. And as I say, it's somewhat manipulative as to where one would focus their awareness within all that geometry. It's like, I see you guys refer to tiling and quantum physics. There's all kinds of shapes that just have all these little tiles all over them, and it just follows those shapes. And then within that little tile, there's another image. It just goes on and on. And it's entertaining, but what's the value? I guess
I know a lot of people are going to be getting feathers out doing this practice now.
Well, you can use a paint stick.
Ines, do you want to make any comments on this, or just go to another question?
Yeah, I would like to comment. You have touched
Thank
so
you,
many
Dr.
topics.
Brown.
Yeah. So many topics you have touched that it's incredible, the synchronicity. First of all, well, it's already known extraocular vision. This is something that has been researched, and curiously enough, Greenberg's research also did ocular vision. And he was practicing that in children, and they found that children could like read one paper from behind. I mean, they knew everything just because of that. And as well, they could, and this is also something that we know, a group that was not long ago in Taurus Tech, which is Vibra Vision, and they also do this kind of training. They have a training that they learned from, I think it was Malaysia or Indonesia. And they learned this technique from the Indonesian, let's say, owners of this knowledge, and it was handed to them. And so they became the holders of this knowledge, and they're doing trainings in all of that. So that's extraocular vision. And it was amazing to see, because we had the experience with them at Taurus Tech, and William was there as well, and we were all there. And so we had a glimpse of what they were doing. And it was very, very impressive. And so it doesn't matter if you're seeing through your eyes or seeing through your skin. What's happening is an interaction. There's an exchange of information that's going on. And in that exchange of information, maybe I can share a slide, because I just gave a presentation on it, on how our sight, like, kind of very roughly works. But it's the same concept, because light goes into the system and some part of it is absorbed. So the complete spectrum is no longer complete, because some part of it is got into your eyes, into your pineal gland. So there's some part of that information that was kept in the system. And the reflective part is, let's say, incomplete. It's just, it's no longer there. So it's got absorbed, and it went through different processes in the biological system. So if I share this slide, you will see, because it's some way of seeing the code of light in a different way. I'll see if I have my slide here. Okay, so I'm going to explain just a little.
Inez, can I interrupt you just for a moment?
Yeah.
Just a real quick follow-on question, and then I'll be silent. Yeah. I was doing my little exercise, and I happened just to be reading a letter for a couple minutes, and then I put the letter down, and maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, I start this again, and this picture, this type appears. I mean, I can read it. I don't know where I'm retrieving that from, but it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, wow. Well,
okay, that's all. I'll be silent.
Okay.
I'll just listen.
I would say the information is imprinted in the space. That's something also that we're also looking into. Now, where's the information? Where where the information is getting imprinted? No. So that's another topic. But let's go first to this slide here. I will share, because this explains, let's say, quantum physics very easily, which is light matter interaction, in sort of speaking. Let me see how I can share my screen. Wait, share screen. Okay, I'll share it here. So let me know if you all can see it. Okay.
Yep, looking good.
Can you see it? Okay. So you have the chromatic circle, okay? Let's say the sun. The sun is emitting basically at all frequencies, let's say, okay? And you have the paper. Let's say the paper, you are seeing it as magenta. So I'm seeing a paper as magenta. This means that the paper is reflecting magenta, because that's what I'm seeing, but it is absorbing everything but magenta, okay? So when I see, so the information here, this is information exchange so what the eye captures, if I'm using my sight, is the whole spectrum without the green, because the green has been absorbed by this paper, let's say. So the magenta is decompensated, and so I'm seeing it magenta, no? Roughly speaking. So let's say, like so you see that in the slide. I don't know if you can follow. Yeah. So this is a chromatic circle, the paper. And so I see the reflection, which is missing this part of the information, and it's and so I see it magenta. This light. Okay, perfect. So then this is happening at the quantum level, meaning by that the atoms constituting the paper, let's say they're built of the same atom, kind of atom, and this atom is absorbing. So you have the shells of the atom, which we call orbitals, okay? And at some point you have, which we know now in the model, in the holographic model, it's not exactly orbitals. These are frequencies of vibration of the cloud generated by the hydrogen. But never mind, let's keep the ancient, the former vision in which you have electrons that are circulating the proton. And so let's say this electron is, it's an it's a charge, a shell we will call, around the proton, and it's vibrating at a certain frequency. When it absorbs this, let's say the green, it will change of shell. It will change of mode of vibration, let's say. And in this change of mode of vibration, it has absorbed the specific amount of energy. This is why it is quantized. It's a specific integer amount of the energy in order to do that jump and fall into the second or mode of vibration, okay? So this is what's happening, let's say molecularly, atomically. The system has got certain modes of vibration that it can access, but these modes of vibration will obey absorption of energy, okay? Once the system has absorbed, the electrons have absorbed some energy, which is in a certain specific amount, then it can reach the second level, and that's what's happening inside the atom, okay? So once you have that, you have, so let's say, for instance, this atom was hydrogen. This hydrogen will absorb some part of the spectrum and will emit this, it will absorb the light from the sun, and then it will re-emit it, but it will re-emit it almost the same as it absorbed it. There will be a little bit of loss in energy from dissipation and some other situations, but mainly the spectrum is the same, a little bit shifted, because the energy is not exactly the same. It's got a little bit of dissipation. So I'm explaining that because when you see the periodic table, I'm sorry, that's not the one I wanted to show. Wait, let me go directly to the slide. So when you see the periodic table, this is what you see. Okay, so I have the emission spectra of elements. This is the periodic table we are all used to, okay? And what you see is that they absorb, well, this is more, not the absorption, but the emission spectra, okay? So once they have absorbed this energy, which is quantized because of what I just explained, it will emit again this light. A little bit shifted because it has lost a little bit of energy, okay? So this, when you see this here, what do you see? For instance, this is hydrogen, this is helium over here, and you will see all the atoms have their own personal print. This is the emission spectra of each element. And what I see here is a code, a barcode. You see? Each element is giving me like a kind of a barcode. I have because the intensity is also reflective of the intensity of the emission. So this chart over here is really, it's to be taken literal. It's the intensity of some of the atoms is very slight. The intensity of the emission is light, but in some other atoms, it's very strong, the emission. And you can see it here in the chart. So when you go, so this is how it's happening with the atoms, okay? They absorbing some energy and they re-emit it, and you can see it that way. And when you see the sun, this is what you see, okay? It is supposed to have all, here you will see some blacks, this is things that are atoms, molecules that are absorbing some part of its spectrum. If there were no atoms in the atmosphere of the sun, let's say in the surroundings of the sun, then you would see here the complete spectrum like that, okay? But you don't see it like that. You will see it kind of black dots here, which are the atoms, molecules over there in this area that are absorbing that part of the spectrum. And so the solar spectrum, this is how people can know in astrophysics, how people can know what's the composition of some atmosphere, because they know these atoms have this signature. Each emission spectra of the atom is a particular signature. It's authentic and only for that atom. No other atom can have that same signature. So you can recognize the spectrum of everything just because of the signature of their absorption and emission spectra. Okay, so when I see that, the first thing I saw was, wow, this is a barcode. You know, I see this, and for me, this is clearly a barcode. I mean, I'm not able to interpret all this whole, because we pay attention only to the atomic part, like, but when you see the whole of it, the composition, complete composition of it, this is a complete barcode giving information to the surroundings, no? And it's amazing. So yeah, I think that was what I wanted to share. Let me see what's after that. Yeah. Yeah, so that's
Fascinating.
let me stop.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that presentation available, Inez?
Yeah, I can, it's not still available, but I can have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Paris. All right, good to see
Thank
you.
you.
Be well. All right, bye-bye. That was fascinating. There we go. Yeah, so many layers to unpacking the phenomenon,
Yeah.
and ways of looking at it, and how all these components interact. And yeah. Let's see, where do we go next?
There's a question for you, Marcia.
About 2022, that one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let's bring Regina on here. Regina, where are you? Let's see, is that Regina's not here now. I don't see your name. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong spot. Here we go. Hi, here you are. Oops. It keeps jumping when I do that. Oh, I think maybe you just raised your hand. Yes, you did. Right when I was about to click it. There we go. I think that should do it. So Regina is asking about at the December Q&A, I noted projections that 2022 would exceed the volatility of 2021. And it seems to be true. Hi, Regina. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Where are you? Where are you?
Toledo, Ohio.
Oh, great. Great. Well, welcome. Nice to see you. Yeah, so it does seem that that is in some ways accurate, that it is a bit more of a volatile experience already. And I'm thinking that what I was referring to was probably based upon the kind of future trends, predictions, so to speak, of a couple of people that I had been listening to, who analyze, the long and short-term cycles and the events of the world, and have methodologies for saying, in some way, which I can't describe, how this is technically happening in the way that they do this, to come up with predictions about what is likely to occur, and have had very substantial success with that over many years. And so the person I heard talking about them really states that because of their pretty high level of accuracy and success in prediction, that it was something worth listening to. So that's the context I think I recall from why I was saying that. And they were indicating that that with all of the dynamics that are at play and are, you could say, playing off of each other during this time, we're seeing a much more disrupted tendency towards much more disruption, volatility, and a transformative process that is, you could think of it as sort of the synergy of all the dynamics working together, indicated that there's a time of greater volatility, greater change, whether that we might consider that to be a positive or negative, judgment on what that is obviously going to be on a case-by-case basis and for each of us individually. My sense is that I think we can all safely say we're in a really potent time of change, and that there is a lot that's becoming revealed that has been not so overtly presented as it's becoming in the world right now, which some of which are drivers for this very transformative time we're in, and some of which reveals, let's say, sort of agendas and dynamics and the systems we're operating in and the intentions for evolving those systems that is becoming more clear and apparent that are driving some of what we're experiencing. And I'm not going to try to unpack, in detail what that is. At the same time, with that you could say this process of things becoming more transparent, things becoming more overt, there's a greater capacity for integration on each of our individual parts and then together in groups and collectively of a whole picture, as well as like what Adam was sharing in the beginning, and which is what we're here about, the integration into resonance and coherence, into creating systems that are empowering and engendering a coherent state and a harmonizing state in the world. And so all of these things are at play at the same time. And it's the disruptive side of it is very challenging at times. I think we've all experienced that in the past 2 years. A large degree of disruption and the consequences of what happened have yet to really roll out. And that's part of why these people doing predictions were saying it's going to be a bit more disruptive and a bit more volatile in this year, next year, leading towards where the coherence and you could say the next level of coming into a coherent, resonant, stable state is what we're leading into. And for our part, we meaning all of us here, yourself and everybody here that's been deepening our understanding of the unified physics model, the unified science model, the resonance, the frequency-based harmonic system. We can feel it, we know it in our minds, and we can feel it in our beings, and it brings excitement that this is where we're heading. This is where we have the opportunity to bring the knowledge and the applications that exist in health and medical, resonance-based technologies like the art crystal and many other kinds of technologies that are existing and are coming, as well as in energy generation and in ecosystems restoration and stabilization and agriculture and you name it, applications across all fields. And so it's critical that we really support and engender that aspect of the change, because that is what's going to bring the stability and coherence, while you could say the old systems that are not viable in the long run because they were never based on a resonant, coherent relationship with the cosmos, you could say. They have their own bit of a lifespan because of the fact that they're not sustained by naturally and innately by the harmonics of the field. Therefore, they have to fall away. And that's the disruptive side, the volatile side that I think I was referring to. What's that's going to look like and all that, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I've seen some things, whether it's the sun cycles or planetary alignments, that they send some sort of influence to us, and it excites somehow our mental, or at least the mental processes of some people, and cause them to maybe react in a way that they wouldn't otherwise, to be more creative or to be more destructive. However it turns out. I saw a study, it was an academic study that took actual astronomical alignments and applied it to what was happening at different points in history. And they found that there was the same alignment during the French Revolution as during the 1960s, and comparing, all that kind of upheaval that went on. So maybe we are getting a super deluxe influx of everything in the past right now.
Well, it's a good point. And you might be referring to the research of Richard Tarnas.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I know his Cosmos and Psyche book.
Exactly, that one.
Does refer to that. And there was another he gave a recent update that I listened to. And I think he was referring to, it's a documentary series, and I don't remember the name, that just came out recently. Kind of based on Cosmos and Psyche, his book, and these cycles that you're referring to, the positioning of the planetary celestial bodies and those dynamics that play out in consciousness, which is a fascinating aspect that deserves real rigorous attention, I believe, because of the fact that these kinds of correlations can be seen, and how to quantify it and qualify the science aspect of that is a good pursuit, I'm sure. But yeah, I think, and from what I've been hearing this year, some of those exact same dynamics are at play, like the return of Pluto to exactly where it was on February 22nd, as it was in 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was the event that was occurring. And so, right at the same time, we see, and it was a very volatile alignment with the other planets that indicated, with Mars, I think, specifically, that indicated the likelihood for war, which has happened in these episodes. And sure enough, boom, that happened right on that date. Who knows if that was by coincidence, by some celestial influence, or by choice? Hard to say, but yeah, that's what I would say in response to your question overall.
Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Be well. All right.
Did I take this one at the top?
Yeah, please do.
Go ahead.
I was hoping you would.
Okay. What do you think of the theory about people with blood Rh negative being from extraterrestrial origins? So I'd like to start off just with a more general big picture view, particularly following our modeling of biogenesis, and even the astronomical mechanisms involved in galactic panspermia. Not yet getting to directed panspermia, but just natural mechanisms of galactic panspermia. We believe that every organism on Earth is of extraterrestrial origin. So even at the initial most stages of life's orogenesis on Earth, it was brought to Earth by extraterrestrial objects. Now, this is a totally naturalistic mechanism as it can occur, in that life that forms most likely in interstellar mediums, actually on like cold ices. It can then be perturbed and shot across the galaxy. It comes to a forming solar system, such as our early solar system, and life is deposited on the early forming planets. So, there was probably life on early Venus, Earth, and Mars. But as it turned out, Earth was the only one that sustained that life that we know of. Now, the thing is that that's an ongoing process. So planetary material is continuously being exchanged across the galaxy. And there's astronomers like Avi Loeb who have done calculations on the amount of potentially life-bearing material being deposited at a galactic scale, and it's quite a lot. So I've actually used the term like the universal genome in the broadest possible sense, just that I believe that genetic material is being continuously exchanged across the galaxy. I mean, so you've got naturalistic mechanisms like galactic panspermia, where life is being carried on cold ices, meteorites, comets, these kind of things. Even the diffusion of viruses through space. There's if you have like a square meter of surface area of the Earth, something like 25 million viruses rain down on that every day. And it's very possible that those are coming from some of them are coming from outer space. Then also you can get into things like directed panspermia, where a intelligent civilization might intentionally send genetic material to specific areas or life forms to specific planets. So I believe that all life on Earth is of extraterrestrial origin. Now, more specifically, in terms of this Rh negative blood type, it's possible, but again, I think that all humans have actually a good portion of extraterrestrial DNA. And now, actually, some of my work, some of my earliest work that brought me to meet Nassim was in identifying specific factors, specific gene elements that I believe are recent extraterrestrial origin, and that have played direct roles in human evolution, particularly in brain development. But it's also, it can be explained by what I guess, I mean, that's all natural mechanisms, but it could be explained even more mundanely. Let's say that you've got a mobile gene element that jumps into the rhesus protein factor and knocks it out. And then you've got a Rh negative genotype, and it doesn't necessitate a extraterrestrial explanation. So it's perhaps indicative of the difficulties in this kind of inquiry, in that it could be, but you could also posit more mundane mechanisms. And part of the reason it's a difficult area of investigation is that we don't really have an extraterrestrial comparison genome, that we can use to say, oh yeah, this is definitely extraterrestrial. We don't have that comparison available. But so it's difficult to ascertain, but it's possible.
Thank you very much. It's just when years ago I went to Peru, and when I came back and I was looking on YouTube at some of the explanations for some of the things I had seen, I was seeing always on the side like the mystery of RH negative blood and all those things. And I'm RH negative blood, and at some point I thought, okay, I don't want to know about this because it was kind of strange. But then, because I heard you speaking before about the extraterrestrial origin, I thought maybe I ask this question,
Yeah. And I just I think that we all have a pretty good amount of extraterrestrial source code in us. And you know, it gets very complex very quickly, you know, because humans have been around for, I mean, we can see in the fossil evidence, at least anatomically modern humans have been around for at least 300,000 years. And I mean, if you're getting fossil evidence, skulls and teeth and hands and these kind of things that are anatomically modern at 300,000 years, that means they developed before that, probably quite a bit before that, you know. So I mean, this is deep history here, 300,000 years. And you know, there's an idea called like the Silurian hypothesis, just that you know, we tend to think that our current civilization is the apex civilization, and also, even a little bit more arrogantly, it's the apex civilization, and it's the only civilization. And I mean, at the extremes, it's the only civilization in the universe. I mean, so much for the Copernican principle of science. But I find that a very tenuous position to hold, given the deep history of life on Earth. You know, if there was an advanced, even non-human civilization 1 million, 2, 3 million years ago, you know, it could have been even more advanced than our current one, and we'd have almost no record in the geological history of that having existed. But so even it's possible that humans have had cycles where, you know, they reached apex civilizations, going back along a 300,000 year history. And so, I mean, it's possible that humans developed interstellar travel, you know, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, went off to another planet. They come back and visit, and we say, aliens. You know, but so I bring that up because maybe they did have a mobile genetic element that jumped into the rhesus protein factor, knocked it out. They're Rh negative. They came back, did some mingling, and we now have this rare genetic factor. And so even though, but calling it extraterrestrial, it's like kind of, I mean, but you know, it may have been humans that originated here, but have been living on another planet. You know, so it can get kind of.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
I was also thinking, because you mentioned before that some kind of mutations appeared for a reason, and I was thinking, is there a utility? Is there a reason? Is RH negative good for something? You know, because I have another anomaly in my blood. I'm missing an enzyme in my blood, and it seems because I'm part of these people that seem to be immune against malaria. So I was just thinking, okay, maybe also RH negative has a function or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's very possible. I mean, it's involved in histocompatibility. So, you know, the body's recognition system of self. So, you know, it's an interesting question. I mean, it certainly, you know, has some utility, some benefits in that, you know, I believe all negative patients are like universal blood donors. But, you know, it also has some negative effects. You know, it can cause difficulties with pregnancy and antibody development of the mother if she's Rh negative and has a Rh positive child. So, but, you know, it's the same kind of with the malarial resistance, in that it confers benefits, particularly in the heterozygous state. It confers resistance against malarial infection, but in the homozygous state, it causes sickle cell anemia. So, while it can be argued that it's beneficial, it can also be argued that in some instances it's not so beneficial. So it's kind of the same with the RH factor, in that, I could see instances where being negative is beneficial, but also instances where it could be detrimental.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for being here. Good to
Thank
see
you.
Bye-bye. Be well. Well, I think we've gone a long time today. We could leave it there for today if that works for both of you. Any other things, burning questions that needed to get answered in us that you were about to do, or shall we just wrap it up?
You saw me.
I know, I could see.
I was just because of this following question from Janine of Suplank part discussing consciousness. It's maybe we can just wrap it up with this question.
Okay, let's do that.
Right?
Yeah, I'll bring
Okay.
it to you.
Okay.
You can go ahead and start while I get her.
Yeah. So Janine Dubois asks, is Suplank part of what you're discussing related to consciousness? So I guess that's calling. Hi, Janine. Calling to the hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, because that's referring to the question from the beginning, from the start. Yeah, because I thought of the same like image of the Suplank transferring information, and yeah, basically the answer I would give is yes. I mean, I would say that levels of consciousness are related to the speed of information transfer across scales. I would say that could be some way of seeing. So I think about like conscious, not as a whole entity, but levels of consciousness or degrees of consciousness, or so because at some point someone asked me in the French Q&A, when did the soul come into the being, And so that's a very interesting question, but it poses this dualism of materialism versus soul, when in fact material is animated. Atoms are animated, they're coherent with the molecules. The molecules are organizing and they're creating cells, and the cells are creating organs and all of that. And this is all coordinated and orchestrated at very different levels of time scales, extremely different time scales. And they're all part of the same entity, right? So at that time, it's like, and of course, maybe you need some kind of supra consciousness to coordinate all that. So that's what we call soul, like the coordination of when everything's reached like a critical point, a critical, I don't know, density of information, then that has a transitional phase that we call the soul,
It's scalar. So what you're talking about, it's scalar, right?
Yeah, it's scalar. Yeah, basically it is scale. That's what I would say. So of course, because we have this entanglement nexus at the sub-Planck scale, which Nassim refers to as the speed of thought of the universe, which is something extremely fast, we would see it instantaneous to our scale. Meanwhile, for that scale, we are like stuck in time. We don't move, from the perspective of the sub-Planck scale, we look like we are not moving, but this is all part of the same system. It's just that you're looking at it at different levels. So at different levels, you have different time scales and different energy scales and different frequency scales, but they're all orchestrated and coordinated. So at some point, this is why the scaling law that's coming soon from Nassim and Olivier, it's important because it's showing that these scales are not happening randomly. It's not that they're all orchestrated up to the end of the universe. I mean, the universe is like a resonance cavity, and you have inner resonance cavities all along from the universe scale up to the sub-Planck scale and sub-Planck scale, and so the resonances, the constructive interference between all these resonances is what builds what we call life and us, and they with their respective time scales of life and all of that. It's just all coordinated throughout the scales. So yeah, so consciousness is just part of that scaling of that. And that's important to know, because in being a human being, you have let's say the consciousness which is the information transfer, let's say, or the feedback mechanism at the subplan scale. Then you have it at the plant scale. Then you have it at the proton scale. Then you have it at the cellular scale. Then you have it like that. So in that, which I am, all scales are participating. All consciousness, all levels of consciousness are participating. And it depends on what the meditation, Nassim always tells us, that the farther you go inside, the farther away you can go outside. Because if you stay at the level of the cell, then you're reaching, let's say, the solar system regime. If you're going deeper into the atom, then you're reaching to the proton, then you're reaching, I don't know, galactic or universal scale. If you go deeper, you go out, it's like everything is related in a holographic. It's the inverse of that. It's it's the holographic solution. That's what it says. The holographic solution tells you at what scale you are in your awareness with respect to the scale, to the inner scale of your physiology, let's say, which is basically energy dynamics and information transfer at those scales. So that's fascinating.
So I'm thinking of two things. I'm thinking of octaves and the harmony that Marshall could bring in. And then I'm also thinking about quantum gravity, like it's not the strong force and the weak force and all, it's all one. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
wow.
And
Super.
what we call matter, fields, forces are all different aspects of this one thing. Okay, so this one thing's got is this extremely complex feedforward mechanism across scales, and what we call sun is that mechanism at that scale. Seen from that perspective. What we call a cell is that mechanism seen from that perspective at that scale, but it's all connected. It's all connected.
Wow, I love it. So when we talk about conscious, subconscious, unconscious, superconscious, those are really just scales of all the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right.
Someone pointed out a question that the universal, that we are unaware, but probably the universe is completely aware of everything that's happening. Okay. At his scale, but remember that the universe is inside a huge, bigger universe. So that universe in the other universe could be a sun. So then it is conscious at the level of the sun with respect to another universe. The bigger universe, it is embedded in.
It's all it's a frame of reference.
It's all frame of reference.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
The one thing is this frame of reference within the one continuum.
Oh man.
Yeah. That's
this is so juicy.
amazing.
Yeah. As always.
As always. Wow, what a great day today. Thank you both. Thank you all.
Yes,
Super.
thank you, Janine. Always good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Great. Well, we wrap it up on the most cosmic perspective possible. That's good. Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Renee, cosmometry. Yes. I love seeing all these comments about the conversations today. And I can tell it just touches so deeply, for everybody, because we're really looking at and exploring some fundamental ideas that help to inform us in our relationship to our world and ourselves and the possibilities. And it's always inspiring and, brings so much great optimism. You two and Adam have such a great depth of knowledge, and then the ability to articulate it in really profound ways. So everybody appreciates that. And so thank you guys so much. Appreciate it again.
Thank you all.
And that's it for today. We'll see you in a month, and hopefully Nassim will have enough bandwidth to do a live with Nassim in April. So keep tuned in for that, and have a great month in the meantime, everybody. Take good care.
Goodbye, everyone.